Hey everyone, today we are going to be doing some percent word problems, and we're going to be using the skills that we talked about yesterday to find parts, percents, and wholes. So to find let's do it in order. To find a part, you're going to change the percent to a decimal and multiply by the whole. Remember to write it as a decimal. You're going to move the decimal to the left 2 times. Okay. To find the missing whole, you're going to set up the percent proportion. Remember that percents always go over 100, so we should never, ever, ever get that part wrong. And then it's just determining what is the part and what is the whole, and we're going to use the graphic organizers down here to help us set that up. And then to find the percent, we're going to do part divided by whole and multiply by 100. So in our notes today, I have an example of each one, and you'll notice that in the example, I list what kind of problem it is, and then what you're going to do to solve that. For finding the percent, you are allowed to use a calculator. And for finding the part, you are also allowed to use a calculator. So this is a calculator allowed question. So in this first one, we're finding the percent. So it says Courtney performed the school band performance, but she also showed up 45 minutes late. The entire show was 125 minutes. What percentage of the show did Courtney perform in? The first thing I'm going to figure out is what my 2 parts are. And my 2 parts have to add up to my whole. So we're talking about her performing in a school band performance. And she performed in part of the show and she missed part of the show. So my 2 parts are going to be what she performed in and what she did not perform in. Now, the box that includes your parts, so this box and this box are going to be the same. And the reason these boxes are going to be the same is because the parts and the percents that represent those parts are going to be the same objects. So this is going to be performed and not performed, or did not perform. I'll write it the same way. And then the whole is going to be the total minutes. So the total length of the show. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to use words to identify each of those things. What are the 2 parts? The 2 parts are the same as the percents that represent them in words. And then what is your whole? What is the entire thing that you're trying to find? So now we're going to look at placing the numbers in the correct spot. So I'm going to change my pen color here. And we're going to place the numbers in the correct spots. So it says Courtney performed at the school band performance, but she showed up 45 minutes late. That means that she did not perform in 45 minutes of the concert. The entire show was 125 minutes. So the total minutes is 125. Now I can figure out how many minutes she performed in the show by doing 125 minus 45, and I get 80. So because there's 125 total minutes and she did not perform in 45, I can figure out that she performed in 80 minutes. Now I'm going to go to my question. And the question here says, what percentage of the show did Courtney perform in? I'm going to put a question mark by whichever thing I am trying to find. So in this case, I'm trying to find what percentage of the show she performed in. So that's my question mark. Now I'm going to turn my highlighter back on, and I'm going to highlight the things that I am going to use to figure out what that question mark is. So the thing that you put the question mark by should automatically be highlighted. Now I highlighted the word performed. So in my other box, I'm also going to highlight the word performed, because those represent the same thing. So I have to use the number of minutes she performed in the show. I want to find the percent of time that she performed, and I have to use the total minutes that she performed as well. This is a finding the percent question. So if I'm trying to find the percent, I'm going to do my percent as a decimal times the whole. So, I'm sorry, I'm finding the percent here, and I did that wrong. To find the percent, I'm going to do part divided by whole and multiply that whole thing by 100. So my part is 80. My whole is 125. And I'm going to divide those two things first. Okay, remember you can show this and then you may use your calculator. So 80 divided by 125 is 0.64. And then I'm going to take that 0.64 and I'm going to multiply by 100. 0.64 multiplied by 100 gives me 64%. So this is finding the percent. I did part divided by whole times 100, and I got 64%. So I identified my parts. I identified the percents that add up to 100, and I stated what my total was. I placed my numbers in the correct spot. So the show was 125 minutes long. She did not perform in 45 minutes, so she did perform in 80 minutes. Then I'm going to place my question mark. My question mark goes under perform because the question says what percentage of the show did she perform in? And then I'm going to highlight what I'm going to use to solve the problem. And then I can use the big box to solve the problem. Example 2 is finding the whole. So we're going to use the percent proportion. Again, we're going to identify the parts and the percents and what our whole is. We're going to place our numbers and then our question mark. We're going to highlight what we're going to use, and then we're going to solve our problem. So it says, during Thanksgiving, Marley needed to mash potatoes. When she woke up in the morning, her mom had already done some of them for her. If 20% of the potatoes were mashed and 16 potatoes were still unmashed, how many total potatoes are there? So we're talking about potatoes, whether they are mashed or unmashed. So I'm going to have mashed potatoes and unmashed potatoes. So mashed and unmashed. And then I've got total potatoes. When she woke up in the morning, her mom had already done some of them. If 20% of the potatoes, so 20% of the potatoes were mashed, then 80% of the potatoes are unmashed because they need to add up to 100%. And 16 potatoes were still unmashed. So there's my 16. How many total potatoes are there? So I'm looking for the whole in this one. My question mark is over here. If I'm trying to find the whole, I'm going to use the percent proportion. So percent over 100 equals part over whole. And now I'm going to highlight what I'm going to use to fill in that proportion. So I've got my total potatoes is the question mark. And then I'm going to go to my parts and my percents boxes, and I'm going to say, what do I know all of? Well, I know all of the information for the unmashed potatoes. So I'm going to use the information for the unmashed potatoes. When I set up my percent proportion, I'm going to start with the percent. So 80 over 100 is equal to, the part is 16, and the whole is my question mark. So to get from 80 to 16, I divide by 5. So 100 divided by 5 is 20. There are 20 potatoes. This is our non-calculator question, because we're going to be able to use our multiplication chart or our brains and our knowledge of the multiplication chart to figure out what we're dividing by. Example 3 is about finding the part. So we're going to do the percent as a decimal times the whole. This question says there are 108 dogs at the park. If 25% of them are female, how many of the dogs are male? So I've got males and females. So males and females. And then I've got total dogs. So now I'm going to put in my numbers. So there are 108 dogs at the park. So there are 108 total dogs. 25% of them are female. That means 75% of them are male, because I need to get to 100%. And I want to know how many dogs are male. So here's my question. That means under my parts category, the males is going to be a question mark. So to solve the problem, I'm going to do the percent as a decimal times the whole. So I'm going to change, now I got to highlight, I'm sorry. So now I need to know what the percent is that I need, and then my whole value. So I know that I'm using the total, because that's the whole. And then I have to look at my parts and my percents box, and I have to say what goes along with the fact that I'm trying to find the males. Your question mark should always be highlighted, and then you're going to find the value that goes with that. So because I highlighted males in my parts box, I'm going to highlight males in my percents box. And those are the ones that I'm going to use. So I'm trying to figure out how many males there are, and I've got 75% are males. So I'm going to change this to a decimal, move it twice to the left. So I've got 0.75 times 108. And this is a calculator question, so I may use a calculator here. So I'm going to type in 0.75 times 108, and I get 81 males. Okay, so when we do these percent word problems, we're going to write some steps down here. Okay, step 1, we're going to identify the parts. Step 2, parts and percents words are the same, because they both represent parts of the whole. So then we're going to identify the whole. Okay, then we're going to place the numbers. Then you're going to identify your unknown. Okay, and that's going to be your question mark. Then we're going to highlight what you're using. So we're going to highlight, and then we're going to solve the problem. The highlighting is going to help you identify which way you're going to solve. So number one, you're going to identify the parts and the percents. The parts and percents words should be the same. You're going to identify what the whole is, so what total amount do you have or are you looking for? You're going to place the numbers that you know and fill in the ones that you can figure out without too much trouble. You're going to identify your unknown. Then you're going to highlight the values that you're going to use. The question mark should always be highlighted. Okay, so the question mark is always highlighted. Because that's what you're trying to find. Okay. Then you're going to solve the problem. The question mark is going to tell you which way you're going to solve, if you're finding the part, the percent, or the whole. Okay, so pay attention to where that question mark is, and then go back up to the top of these notes and use this information up here. Okay, use your resources. As you're working on your homework assignment for this, we're going to make it an in-class activity only, and you have to check in with me at each step. So after you fill in the words, you're going to check in with me. Then you're going to fill in the numbers in your question mark and check in with me. You're going to highlight and check in with me before you solve. Okay? So we're going to go through this step by step because these word problems can be pretty complicated. Use your notes, use your resources, and then I've got some steps down here at the bottom that are going to help you. Okay? Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and I will do my best to answer them.